Hello, everybody. You're so welcome to this episode of the Accountants Club podcast. Today, I'm joined by someone who I call a legend. And
Aw.
it's, a legend is something that, it has to have some longevity about it. The person has to be in the industry for a while. The person has to be building something that's going to last as a legacy, even when that person is no longer in it. And today I'm joined by the incredible Karen Reyburn. Karen, it's so exciting and I'm so happy to have you on here today.
Thank you. So great to be here, Paul.
So I suppose to get going, I know you from probably 20 years or that.
I was going to say, it's many, many years. Let's say many, many years.
Yeah. Let's say many, many years is better. But I suppose for people that are listening that don't know either of us, I would say when I'm thinking about this, if you've ever felt unsure in your business, in your practice, if you ever felt overwhelmed, if you've ever felt awkward about marketing, then this is the episode for you. This is the person for you and the team that will show you the journey and show you how to be creative. I think that to me is something that I've gained over the years from knowing you, from working with you, from understanding your process, and from seeing just how you can adapt to what's going on in the world today. And we'll talk a bit about AI and all of that.
Yeah.
But first of all, I want to do a little plug, which I don't normally do, but this is an incredible book, right? This book was written by Karen. It's packed full of incredibly useful tools and a journey, and you're going on a journey when you're reading this book. It's called The Accountant Marketer. We leave a connection to this book, but this is the first book. There is another book coming after this. So if you have purchased this book, just make sure you sign up for the second one, because the second one is another game changer in terms of this as well. So Karen, I'd like you to introduce yourself and tell us about this concept of creativity in a compliance world or an advisory world. And just tell us, how did a CPA end up creating a global creative agency?
I love it. And actually, what's fascinating about this conversation is that when you and I met all those years ago was in the very early stages of when I was figuring out how to support accountants. And I had worked for an accountancy firm in Scotland, and then they were members of a network of accountants that you and your firm were a member of. So we connected there, and we did this thing called a boot camp, which was like a week-long, like, change your approach from accounting to advisory sort of thing. And that's relevant because that actually is where PF came from. I still am a qualified accountant in the States. I worked as an auditor. I worked for an accountancy firm. I worked for that network of accountants of which you and your firm were a member. And then I just noticed that there's so many people telling accountants what to do with marketing. You need to do this. You need to do this. And at the time, I didn't see anyone going, and we will help you do it, or do it for you, or do it with you. And there now are lots of companies who do help accountants in different ways with marketing. And of course, many accountants use a client or a one-off, like this brand person or this website person. But the thing that still makes PF stand out is that our focus is to help with the mindset and the approach and the structure. And to say, if you're going to do marketing, you need to first recognize that it is your job. It is your responsibility. You have to do marketing, but even better, you can do it and you can actually be really good at it. And that is the hurdle that I have seen many accountants not get over very quickly because of what's in your head of like, I'm not creative. I'm not a creative person. Creativity is for artists and writers and people like that. I'm just an accountant. And what I've loved seeing, not just through my book and our work, but so many other people who are helping accountants and accountants who are recognizing that if you're a business owner and your business happens to be an accounting business, then it's your responsibility to learn more about marketing and to use that amazing brain of yours with all of your brilliant ideas, which you have them, and then figure out how that fits into your marketing. And if you need help, there's people like us to help you. And you can also try stuff yourself. So that's the sort of journey that we went through. Is first I started helping accountants to get marketing done. Then I wrote the book to say, here's the stuff I keep saying over and over and over. So please just read that first or listen to it, audiobook, whatever. But like, get that structure in your head. And now the second book that I've written that's coming out this year is, by the way, you are a creative person. And when you accept that and recognize that and get excited about that, your marketing will be better. And what's interesting is, in one sense, I would almost prefer people to read book 2 first, like believe that you're creative. But it actually makes sense that it went the other way, because it's a lot more comfortable for accountants to go, let me understand the structure of marketing. How does it work? What first, what next? So having that structure in your mind maybe makes you feel a little more like, okay, there's a process here. Great for accountants, ops, processes, systems, organized lists, yay, things you can tick off. But that will only take you so far. And if you're sitting there telling yourself, I'm not a creative person, this isn't my job, I just need to hire a marketing person or agency, that will hold you back. And that's the purpose of talking about creativity and how important that is for accountants.
Yeah, and I suppose for me, marketing with meaning is something I hear you speaking a lot about. Do you know what I mean? And the concept of, like, marketing is communication. It's not performance. So you have to have this ability to communicate with people, and you have to have this ability to be able to connect with people. And the fact that it's done with meaning is something that, to me, brings back in this concept of culture and core values and the concept of core focus and all of that. And I think in the times that we're coming into, this is what's going to make us stand out. It's the fact that marketing has meaning. Then if it has meaning, your job is to communicate what you know, right? And the other big thing I talk about is, like, it's not for me, it's for the client.
Yep.
The marketing message is for the client. You say that a lot.
Yep.
So therefore, can you just elaborate a little bit about those tactics and how that concept of marketing has meaning?
Yeah, I love that you brought that up about the meaning and the culture and the who you actually are. One of the biggest dichotomies for accountants is, if you look at marketing as a task you have to complete, like, okay, I will do this, tick, 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 I will have a website, it will say words, and I just want to get leads. And the accountants that we work with don't just want to get leads. This concept of better, not more. It's not about just getting lots of people inquiring. We all, I would hope, know that you would rather have 2 amazing inquiries who are your best kind of clients that you enjoy and want to talk to, than 20 people that you're like, oh my gosh, I've just spent another 30 minutes saying the same thing, and then they're not ready to invest or they don't understand the value. So one of the things I encourage people to do is, when you're experiencing a good marketing and sales process yourself, when you're on the receiving end of it, I think even something like reading my book is a good example. The number of accountants that are like, I have read it, and now I understand this, and now I realize I need help with this, or not. Some people just read it and just do stuff, which is great. Love that. I just want to help as many accountants as possible. But you think about how that feels. What do you have for your audience to go, before I've even met you, I've listened to your podcast, I've read your book, I've downloaded this guide, I've watched this video. I have a little sense of who you are as a person and a company, which causes me to take action faster if I'm the right kind of person.
Yes. So the content is your voice. Do you know what I mean? That's the thing that I was taking from this, where you talk about content is your voice. But it's also, everything is content. Do you know what I mean? So you have to be true to your voice.
But it's that connection of, like, there's so many accountants say, if I can just get somebody in the room, if I can get them in the meeting, if I can talk to them on the phone, if I can have a Zoom call, they can see what I'm like. And your marketing ought to be doing that job for you. Yeah, so then 100%. Instead of, like, just creating a website page, you're saying, how much of this website page helps this person feel like they know me before they know me? So I'll give you a tiny example of something me and our marketing person at PF were doing. We have a banner on our website that talks about the Accelerator Coaching Group, which is the coaching group that goes through the book. And we just have a little banner that says, hey, the Accelerator's starting soon. get some more info. And we were obsessing over this button. Do we say more info? Do we say get details? Do we say learn more? And finally we went, we are definitely overthinking this. Why don't we just change the button every week? Just try different things. Yeah, just see what happens. Just be like, discover more, explore details, read FAQs. We're just going to play with it. And I think that aspect is something that accountants can struggle with when it comes to marketing, because marketing is not, it is and it isn't a science. There's a science aspect to it.
It's definitely, marketing is not gimmicks. You have to have that authenticity at the back of you to talk about that. And as an accountant who for a long time struggled, with the concept of marketing, and you helped me a lot with that. And then we have Rachel here now, who's incredible as well. And the ability to just be myself and trust the fact that being myself will just, either people will like it or don't like it. But the people who like it,
which is fine.
It doesn't matter. But it's the same as me. It has to be authentic.
Yes.
You have to be yourself in the world of marketing, because being yourself is what makes you different.
And getting that across means that you can actually stress out less about things like, what is the exact button? What are the words that go here? What are all the other accountants saying on their websites? Screw that. Just be like, what do I need to say? If you took a website page on your website about services, and you said, when I have a prospect come in, what are the top 7 questions, maybe even the top 3 questions that they ask me every time about my services?
Yeah.
And if those 3 questions are answered big and bold right at the beginning, you want to know who you're going to be working with, what kind of arrangement it is, and how much it costs. Roughly even. And I always say this about pricing. You have to mention pricing, but you have to mention it in the same way you would mention it to a real person. So if somebody said to you, Paul, how much does it cost? You would say, for what? What is it that you need? What kinds of things do you need? It depends. It's the great marketing answer. It depends. But you need to say that in a human way. And then your services page isn't, we do accounting and bookkeeping and tax and payroll and blah, 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 which nobody cares about. They know you do those things. So tell them the things that they don't know in a human way. And if you put the words on there and go, gosh, that sounds like ChatGPT because I just stole it from there and I didn't give it any good prompts and whatever, then change it so that it sounds like you.
Yeah. Yeah. Have the conversation with ChatGPT in your own voice.
ChatGPT is grand. All the AI tools are grand. But if you don't have a brand voice, or you don't have the number of times ChatGPT has given me a suggestion, I've come back and said, yes, but can you make it less ChatGPT? ChatGPT is not going to be offended if you're like, that sounds too much like AI. I need it to sound human. Here's what I'm trying to say. Another great exercise for something like a blog post title or a button wording is to write out or say aloud what you wish you could say. So you're like, what I wish my button could say is, click this button to find out all the details and discover whether this is for you and whether it's a good use of your money. That's what I'm trying to say in my button. Clearly, that's too much. So let's slim that down and slim that down and slim that down. But you got to start somewhere. So just throwing the first draft is always perfect because its job is to exist. Just get it out there. Because accountants are going, what is the perfect words for the button?
You see, I'm not a perfectionist in that sense. So for me, that doesn't bother me. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it doesn't really bother me if it's, not 100% correct. Now, Rachel goes, cool, but I'm okay with that. So she'll fix my mistakes. But the point I'm making is it's better out there and bad than not out there at all.
That is what I'm saying.
Most natural thing I had to do was I had to learn to speak on camera. Mm-hmm. And then you start to speak on camera and you're trying to be authentic. And then you're saying you're overweight. Where did double chin come from? Where's your teeth gone? You don't sound right. I don't sound like that when you listen back. So I solved all that problems by not listening back to anything. But I get okay with it. And then I happened on some crazy person some stage last year who decided it was a good idea to do a 100-day challenge online.
Absolutely mental.
Yeah, and thanks for that. But we ended up doing, it was probably one of the best things I've ever done because it forced me just to be natural on the camera and it forced me to be myself. And I think that alone whether anybody got it, but you'd be surprised at the reaction of putting stuff out there every day on a continuous basis. Because I've had one guy walk up to me in the local pub and he says to me, what's it all about? I said, I haven't a clue. I'm keeping at it anyway. And then I had another person, oh, you're the guy on TikTok. Now, it's not about the recognition, but it's about that it does, when you put it out there, it's there.
Yeah.
Now, I prefer blog posts and I prefer video content as your own, because I think that will stand the test of time. And as you get a bit older, I do believe that that's there for the next generation to come along and look back on it as a history of what we were going through at the time.
There's so many tools that the software or app or platform can change, but you've got to have content that belongs to you and that you own. So like I write a blog post every week from myself personally as Creative Headspace. It goes out by an email. I save that content in a Google Doc and I put it on my website so that if LinkedIn goes down or something happens to Instagram, you haven't lost that content. Just going back to your point about making it sound like you, I do believe that where accountants struggle is, okay, but I have to get it right. And I have to make sure that everything is correct. And I would say the only things that you really need to be concerned about are when you are stating categorically like a tax rule. But even then, all accountants would say, well, it's this, but you need to talk to us because your situation might be different. So just get in a habit of saying that. It's just going to depend. So it is about getting, and this is back to our concept of creativity. It's about getting comfortable with failure, getting comfortable with apparent failure. Like you think it's a fail, but it's actually not. It's just another step in the process. It's getting comfortable with playing things for the sake of playing with them. So you're like, well, what good does it do for me to post on Instagram every day? Where's my ROI? And I'm like, we're not even at the ROI stage yet. ROI comes when you know where to put your investment. If you don't know that yet, just play with Instagram, play with LinkedIn, try a few things, and then you have an idea where to put your investment to get that ROI.
But the concept that's always been the issue, and for me, it's not so much because I'm a businessman who happens to be an accountant, but I talk to a lot of accountants as well. And the idea of getting it right, getting it perfect, making sure it's correct, comes from the training in doing a set of accounts, ensuring that. So it's the background and the training. So it's changing the mindset, changing the authenticity, letting them understand that it's okay to do this, because your tiny bit of knowledge could be the exact secret that somebody else is looking for.
Yeah.
And you might think, well, I know how to do a bank rec on this program, and if you click that and that, this person is searching for that answer. And you've got the first stage of getting to know the people, and you've given them value. But I suppose moving on, I mean, the broader movement of the accountant marketer, like creativity with purpose, right? I suppose it's more than a job title. It's a kind of a movement that needs to happen within the accountancy firm. There should be some kind of a rallying cry. I personally believe that institutes and regulations, they don't talk enough about the business of accounting. And what I love talking about is the actual business of accounting. And what I specialize in, the likes of this, is the business of running a practice. I can't do your area, right? But the question is, I can do the business of running our accountancy practice. Do you know what I mean? And there's a lot of people now who are stuck in that business. But talk to me a little bit about the core belief that, accountants are creators.
Yes.
That's the big thing,
Yeah, so a lot of what I talk about in my second book, which is on pre-order now, is the concept of what creativity actually is. And I spend a whole section being like, here's what it's not, or here's what you might think it is. So you might think creativity is painting on a canvas, being an author, standing on a theater, like that's creativity. And actually, creativity is this combination of problem solving and curiosity. So you are wondering, and this is what children do. This is why we know that children have this beautiful creative mindset, because they're like, wonder what happens if I do this. And sometimes it turns into literal explosions or a big old mess, because they're not obsessed with making sure the walls are clean. They're obsessed with going, what happens if I use this color, this Sharpie on the white wall? I wonder, oh, hey, this is what happens. That's fun. And they're just enjoying the process. And they're just going, what happens if I? And then you combine that with a problem that you're trying to solve. And this is why I'm hopeful that accountants can recognize their own creativity, because you do this every day for your clients who say, I have this problem in my business. I have this thing I'm not able to solve. And a lot of accountants that I work with anyway are the ones that are like, listen, we will do your accounts. We will get those ready. We'll sort the payroll. But more importantly, we will help you with the fun part. The bit where you're sitting with this business owner who's like, I don't understand how to solve this. And you're like, I do. I do understand how we might solve this. Let's figure it out together. And you go far deeper than just payroll. You're helping them figure out who's the next hire. How much are they going to be able to offer as a salary for that hire? Who's the next 5 hires? How does that impact the culture of their business and their team and how that works together and their profitability? You know all of that because not only are you an accountant, but you're also a business owner and an entrepreneur. So you are helping your client solve a problem. And the two of you are being curious about, like, I'm curious, how big do you want your company to get? I'm curious whether you understand what your most profitable product or service is. And when you ask those curious questions, and then you get to dig into the numbers to find out, and they say, oh, this is my most profitable product. And you're like, is it though? And then you check and they go, oh my God, they have this literal little light bulb that appears over their head. And they're like, I genuinely had no idea that in my cafe, actually these things that I enjoy making and that fly off the shelves are losing me money. So I need to make a change.
You need to make a change. And I suppose some of the quotes that I've seen a lot or read a lot about you, if you're overwhelmed, go back to your why. You say that a lot, and I've seen that a lot. I've seen that quote coming out. Like, just talk to me a little bit. Like, what's the first thing an accountant should do if they really feel stuck? Then explain the concept of go back to your why.
Feel stuck in what way? Like creatively, you mean?
With their marketing.
If you're feeling stuck with your marketing, there's usually a couple reasons. One is you're thinking about marketing as a list of tasks.
If it's not that, no.
No. A list of stuff that goes into your Notion or your to-do list or whatever that has to be done. And then you're going, well, I don't know what those tasks are, or I do, and there's too many of them, and I don't know which ones I do and which ones someone else does. So I would say you need to go back to the marketing strategy, actually. And interestingly, I'm not the hugest fan of the start with why phrase, because I think it has been misused. I don't believe that what Simon Sinek wanted for all of us was to be like, I run my business because I love my family and I want to, like, nobody really cares about that. And not in a horrible way. It's because each of us care about that for ourselves. So they're not going to buy accounting services from you because you want more time with your family. That's not why they're going to do it. They're going to buy them from you because you know what you're doing and you are able to creatively apply your knowledge to their situation and connect to them. But when you're feeling overwhelmed with marketing, it's often either because you know exactly what you need to do and you don't know who is to do what, or because you don't know what to do. So you've got to solve one of those two problems. If you don't know what to do, you need to dig into the core foundational things of why you're doing this. Like if you're presuming you're doing it to get leads, it's good to check that because is it leads? Is it more leads? Is it better leads? Is it more business from current clients? What is it? Then who are you and how well is that represented in your foundational marketing, your website, your social media, etc. And then what are the tasks? So that's the approach that we take. We call them the foundational strategy sessions. There's 4 of them. And the goal is to get you from, I don't know what marketing to do for me and for my firm to, I now know exactly what to do and in what order.
Yeah, because if you go from the tasks, you're going from the bottom up.
Yes,
and you don't know
exactly.
If you go from the foundational element, which is what Marie and I done over there, which gave us a
Yes.
brilliant, you brain dump your issues and opportunities, but you went back up to the top to figure out what the reason was.
Otherwise, you're just doing tasks for the sake of doing them, or because Paul is doing a podcast, so therefore I need to do a podcast. Maybe not. Maybe you don't need to do a podcast. Maybe you need to run events with your clients. Like, the strategy is, what is it that you want to achieve, and who are you, and who do you serve? And then once you have those tasks, this is the second part. If you're feeling overwhelmed, like, you're like, listen, I know the task. I've done the strategy. It's very clear. Who does what? That's simply a matter of who is the most expert in these areas at the investment that I'm ready to put in.
Yeah.
So you might need a couple freelancers, a couple internal team members, yourself and PF to help you with strategy. It might be that combo. You might need a marketing agency to do all of it. You might do all of it yourself, but it's always a toss-up of time and money. How much money do you put in, and how much time do you put in, and where does the balance go?
And you have to budget for marketing.
My gosh, you have to budget for marketing. If you have not budgeted anything for marketing, you are riding on a previous way of doing business that either is already letting you down or will very soon let you down. And you're saying, oh, we just get word of mouth. It's fine. Not going to be fine in 2 years' time when your website doesn't reflect who you are. You're not anywhere on social media. All of those words of mouth are drying up and you're not being active on it. And then you come to us in a panic. This happens all the time.
Yeah.
The accountants come to us in a panic and go, well, we need a new brand, a new website, a bunch of assets, 3 years of blogging and content and social in the next month. And we're going, that is not physically possible. You need that structured, steady, consistent steam train, chug, chug, chug. And you're trying to turn the steam train into an actual jet stream in a day or a month. And, you're either going to have to put a truckload of money into it, or you're going to have to just start where you are now. And I don't mean to discourage anyone who's like, great, so you're telling me that I ought to have been doing it for 3 years. Well, maybe so. But the first best time was 3 years ago. The second best time is now.
And that leads us great into the conversation that I've talked to a huge number of people about recently. And I think I cannot agree more, because everything you're talking about I have done in the past. I haven't slowed down to speed up.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I haven't given myself time to, and now my time is full time in the practice on growth, on marketing, on content, on understanding, on building frameworks that help us to explain to our client what we do in a language that they can understand. Do you know what I mean? With no clear expectation of a budget, no clear expectation of a target of what I want to get in. I want to make it the best thing that we can do available. There will come a time when you'll put targets on it, but this is not the time for targets. This is the time for the clarity breakthrough, understanding the principles of marketing, understanding that RDA is here since 2002, and please God, it'll be here for the next 30 years. I'm coming up to a significant milestone, birthday in June, and it's not 40. Unfortunately, it's not 50 either. But the question I have now is, there's a legacy concept in my head that to create this thing for the people and to give the best value that you can possibly give. But what's happened, we're in a really strange era now at the moment.
Yes.
And we're in an era of AI that's reshaping everything we do. And I have spent so much time since kind of the week after ChatGPT has come out. And it's been a massive tool that I use in the practice here for everything, for food planning for myself, for personal stuff for myself, all of that side. But it is a tool. It's not a shortcut, right? And you have to, all the conversations we've had around automation, all conversations we've had earlier on here about culture and values, my passionate belief is that this culture and values thing will help us to stick out. But firms want to pair that with automation and AI. And they're two completely distinct and separate things. Automation is one, and AI is another thing. And the use of this here now, when you see the things like generative AI and what's happening and how fast it's changing and all, this train has left the station. The question is, are you wanting to be on the fast track, or are you wanting to be on the slow, on the train that stops at every station? So I'm the person that likes to sit at the cutting edge of the front end of this and make the mistakes at the front end. You're educating people behind you, but that's okay. Like, we spent over 500,000 on R&D in the practice here in the last 3 years. I cannot tell you the amount of money we've spent on marketing, but what I will tell you is recently we've spent as much again on PR,
Yeah.
because we have a director of celebration sitting opposite me here too that does like to celebrate. So, but then that's okay. That happens. That's the journey. But how do you think firms will win when they pair marketing with AI and automation?
Yeah, such a great question. It could be an entire podcast or workshop or thing on its own. And this is because AI is a fundamental shift in our global approach to things, not just marketing, but life and how we do it. I mean, the fact that I get a mystery box of veg every 2 weeks from a vegetable supplier, and I will literally take one of these vegetables that I don't know what it is, and my instinct, my default is to ask ChatGPT, what is this vegetable? And then when it tells me, I say, well, can I put it with these ones? What kind of soup could I make? Me and ChatGPT are like BFFs on this concept of vegetables.
Sorry for interrupting you, but could you just imagine your grandmother?
That's what I
Right?
mean. Like, I will text my mother sometimes, but yeah.
Like, that's the picture. That's my grandmother. My grandmother, my great grandmother in that picture there. I often ask myself, what would they even think about what's going on? Sorry for interrupting you.
But it's like being able to talk to your grandmother and 17 other grandmothers, as well as somebody who just started cooking yesterday, and you're accessing this mind for whatever, for veg, for marketing, for strategy, for a little less so for accounting laws. And I think this is why accountants are like, but it could be wrong. Of course it could be wrong. That's the whole point about being, like you said, at the front. So the first thing is that we are way past the time where we're saying, oh, this is new. This is not new. This is a part of our life now. It's like when the internet was new and then it just became normal, or apps, or using your phone. I almost never use my phone as a phone, but I use it for all the other things. I use it for text messages and WhatsApp and a billion other things. That's what AI is doing. So the question is not, are you using it? Because I can reasonably guarantee that every person who is listening to this podcast is using AI for something. The question is, how can you use it well for something like marketing, which can tend to be a little more of an art than a science at times? And this is your opportunity. This is your opportunity to practice creativity. And instead of, like you said, instead of looking at it as a way to avoid marketing or shortcut marketing or skip marketing, oh, yay, I don't have to write a blog post. I'll just get ChatGPT to write it. That is a bad way to approach AI, because AI is not you, but you can train it to know you. So if AI knows you, then you can say, all right, given all of the articles that I have written in the past, all the videos I have uploaded, all of this content that I have, how would you write a blog post from me about this question that I have from a client? That is a better way to use it, because, circling back to your point about transparency and honesty, and this is authenticity, this is who we really are. Don't ever take the first thing ChatGPT gives you. Don't ever do it. Whatever the first thing they give you, that is your opportunity to ask more questions. And you need to be using AI to challenge you. I think a lot of times we're tempted to use AI to make our lives easier, where actually the point is to say, what would my most difficult prospect, the prospect who is most resistant to working with me, what would they ask? Ask AI that. Don't just say, give me some words for a website page about accountancy services. You will get the most boring page you've ever seen in your life, guaranteed. So you need to ask it better questions. You need to say, I am like whatever your audience is. And if you don't know what your audience is, you got to figure that out, chapter 1. But if you know your audience, then you can say, well, our audience is the owners of tech-based businesses in Dublin who make at least 1 to 10 million and are trying to get funding. Whatever, I've just made that up. And you say, if you're one of these people and you are looking for an accountant, what are the top 5 questions that you're going to ask? And what are your top 5 objections to that information? You will get so much better content because the content is not what ChatGPT gives you, because it's just a conglomeration of all the information in the world that we have access to. What you wanted to do is pull out the information in your head. You're the one that is the expert. You're the one that knows these clients. So if ChatGPT says, well, I'm going to ask this and I'm going to ask this, and you're going to go, I know the answer to that because I have talked to 100 of these clients. That's when it gets really powerful, because it is helping you to draw out that phenomenal expertise, which is the thing that people will connect with when they meet you in person. And that's what we're trying to speed up.
I'm amazed and I'm astounded by your knowledge, but it's just, it comes out of you, just, you're so passionate about the whole thing, right? And that passion comes from the longevity in it and from the caring in it. So if you were to give a message to accountants out there, what would your message be?
That's a really good question, because as you say, I've been doing this for 20 years. I love accountants. I think accountants are some of the people with the most impact on small businesses and business owners and human people and how they run their businesses and can make their lives better. And what I really do want to get across to accountants is that you have a creative mind, and either you know it deep down or you are not leaning into that and you're resisting it. You're going, well, I don't have a creative mind. That is going to hold you back. So I talk to some accountants like, actually, yes, I am a creative person. I am 100% aware of that, and I'm going to lean into that. But most often, those are people that I've worked with for a long time or have read all the books or whatever.
You turn them into it.
So, yeah, so I would say, first off, explore how you can discover what your particular brand of creativity looks like. So one of the stories I tell in the book is about my wonderful mother, who has amazing talents and is one of the most creative people I know with gardens and cooking. So this woman can be like, here's what's in the fridge. I'm going to make this amazing casserole that you want to make again, but you never can because she doesn't even know what she put in there, but it's phenomenal. Or you look at her garden and it's this explosion of beauty and she goes, oh, I just put this over here and I put that over there. She is a creative person.
She must be horrified at the thought of you putting a vegetable question into her. What do you do with this?
I do message her sometimes. I message her after I've talked to ChatGPT and be like, Mom, I've just discovered golden beets. And she's like, you don't like beets. And I'm like, I didn't used to, but guess what? Now this, and I've discovered this. And then we have a conversation about it. So I think the thing I want accountants to lean into is to find your own personal brand of creativity and what that looks like for you. Because if you reject creativity out of hand and say, I am not creative, you will never get to the potential that you have as an accountant with marketing. You will not. If you resist that, your mindset will stop you. So don't let it stop you. But if you're going, but I'm not an artist, I'm not great with vegetables or with whatever, fine. Figure out what it is that causes you to be like, well, this is interesting. This is curious. I like playing with this. It's the sort of thing that you do in your business on your downtime, on a Saturday morning, and you're playing with something. Maybe you are playing with one of the latest AI tools. Which tool is it, and what is it that you find fascinating? Is it creating your own ChatGPT? Is it something with social media? Like there's a LinkedIn AI tool I was playing with on a Sunday morning, just trying to figure out how it worked, because I want to help me and my clients use social media better. So I thought, well, this could be a good way to do it. So if you listen to what your actions are saying to you about creativity, that is the best first step, because it will flow from there.
It reminds me of a story I remember from my primary school days, which is going back. It was the story called The Windows of Wonder. And the whole thing talking about that creativity and the freedom of expression and that. But just before we finish up, I'd like to do a kind of a little bit of a quick fire
Nice.
question round
I
for
love
you,
it.
if you like
Let's
that one,
go.
yeah? What's your favorite book of the year that's obviously not your own?
Favorite book of the year.
It can be anything, be fiction, non-fiction. It doesn't have to be.
I am a voracious reader, so sometimes that makes it challenging. I literally have a list on my phone of books that I want to read and books that I have read. So I mean, I tend to go more for like books that stuck with me. So it's
Yeah.
not necessarily a book of 2025 when we're having this. It's more books that there's something in it that is sort of settled in my mind and I keep revisiting or I go back to.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to sort of cheat a little and say one of the top business books and life books is Atomic Habits, James Clear,
Yeah, that's
because of the
behind me.
impact that the little statements and the little things that stick in your mind. And that's what I
Yeah.
think a good book does. And I'm always super honored when somebody's read my book and said, well, it's like you said this, and they remember it. And I'm like, that's what a good book is supposed to do. So that's probably my top one. But I did just check my list, and my top one this year would be the book Finish by John Acuff, which is about the human tendency to not finish stuff. And you think it's just you. You're like, oh, it's everybody else is doing so great. Paul is finishing things. John is finishing things. Maggie is finishing things. I am just getting stuck. No, we're all the same. But it identifies what it is that prevents us getting things over the finish line. And I was very pleased that I actually finished the book.
Okay, next question. There's a lot of talk that the movie, this film series of Harry Potter was better than the books. What's your opinion?
My opinion is that they are both different media. So it's actually very relevant to marketing. There's a purpose for the books and a purpose for the films. And there's a whole new series that's being built.
That's what I was asking. There's written content and video content.
Yes. So I think they're both good. I mean, I happen to really enjoy the Harry Potter films, but now I'm looking at the new series that's being created like what direction is this going to go? But there's artistic license with that. Whereas the book it stays. You know, it's there. You're not going to change the book later.
So the point I'm making, your blog post will always be there. Blog posts are underestimated. Their blog
Usually,
posts
it's very rare that you would edit the content of a blog post. And if you did, you would tell people you did. It's like saying, I have done whatever, another version of the Accountant Marketer episode, whatever, version 2, and I have changed some things. You would tell people.
Yeah. Should you put ice in whiskey?
My absolute, I don't like to say rule, but the principle with whiskey is drink it the way you like it. So if you want ice, put in ice. If you don't like it with ice, if you want a few drops of water, if you only like Scotch whiskey or you don't like blended whiskey. I will say that a lot of people presume they don't like whiskey because they haven't tried good whiskey. They've drank it like they're a 17-year-old discovering cheap whiskey. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's not for shots. This is not tequila. And then thirdly, try it different ways. It is entirely possible that once you've been to a whiskey distillery and you've tried it 3 different ways and you say, that is not the drink for me, that is okay. But it's not okay to say, oh, you have to drink whiskey this way or that, because it's about how you enjoy it.
I suppose the very last question, when it's all done and finished in terms of the work side of it, what do you want your legacy to be?
I think the simplest way to say it is that I helped people. And I helped people in whatever way I was able to do at the time and with the connection we had. Because when I look back at what motivates me and what I keep doing, what I do naturally, even if I'm not paid for it, is to connect good people together. So sometimes that's connecting me and my agency with an accountant so they can get great marketing results. Sometimes it's connecting an accountant with another company. Like, they're like, we need HR support in the US. And I'm like, we don't do that, but I know somebody who does. And sometimes it's just saying something that causes somebody to think and change the way that they do something. That to me is what matters.
And just before you finish up, I want to say personally, it's an honor and it's a privilege to have you on the podcast. It's the first interviewed podcast I have done in this series, and I'm delighted that you're the first guest on the interview series. It's a methodology I really like. I would encourage people to buy the book. I'm an audiobook person myself, and I love the audio version. I would also say to sign up and test out the services that Karen has to offer. Her website has a lot of good content and good information that's available to people. We were just looking at over the last couple of days and downloading the maps and things like that, and they're just so relevant and they're so well written and they're so well laid out. Where can people find you?
So if you want to find me personally, the top 2 best places are LinkedIn and Instagram. So Karen L. Reyburn for both. Do send me a DM. I do my best to respond to all DMs from normal humans, not bots, not salespeople, not do you want to get a coffee and hear about my product.
Yeah.
And then if you're buying or pre-ordering the book, it's on my personal website, KarenLRayburn.com. But I did want to say on the second book, one of the people quoted in the book is yourself, Paul, because we had a conversation about creativity and about how you implement it in the 100-day challenge. And so I just wanted to say thank you for it going both ways, because this second book has more stories and more this person, this accountant human did this creatively. And that's one of the funnest parts about it. So I've appreciated being on here as well.
Thank you. Well, when the podcast will be launched, it'll be on all the major podcasts. So thank you so much for coming on board. I've enjoyed this immensely and I've learned a lot.
Good.
It's great to be
That's what we want. Look, I've helped somebody.
Yes, you have. Thank you.